here I am talking to the amazing Lucia Chappelle on her lovely porch at home in Echo Park, definitely a queer space with some queer history.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about This Way Out and your history in queer radio. Tell us, how did you get involved in the first place?
Well, I first got involved in KPFK right out of college. I couldn't find a job, so I went to be a volunteer. And one day, Greg Gordon happened to stop me in the hallway. I guess we started talking somehow, and he found out I was a lesbian. So he's, please, come to the Gay Radio Collective meeting. Finally, I showed up.
Yeah.
This was 1975. Before there was anything.
Right.
I mean, we'd do an hour-long show and then spend an hour and a half afterward answering crisis calls on the phone. Because there was no center.
Right.
You know? There wasn't anything. So we were that queer space on the air.
Yep, exactly.
For people, and you could listen under your covers and have community.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the call-ins that you got would kind of come out of the content of the show, but also people just really wanted a place to connect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
On our first gay day, Lynn, I was working switchboard at KPFK in the afternoon, and I got a call. This woman's very delicate voice said, "I'm 80 years old, and I'm a lesbian. I've never told anyone that before, but I wanted to tell someone today."
Oh.
Click. That was it.
Oh. And she just needed to be heard and needed to be identified. Wow. Well, those are all the reasons why these kinds of shows still need to exist.
Yes.
Those are all the reasons.
Yes. You know, we hear so much, Lynn. I'm sure you get it too. Why do you need to have a space for women or a space for gay and lesbian radio when you've got, my goodness, queers have practically taken over
The world.
mainstream cable television, for heaven's sake, you know?
Yeah.
Why do you need a separate space? Because of that same thing.
We still hear that. I mean, we hear that in all of our activism, you know, in different organizing that I do, that even though we can go anywhere in theory, there's something different about feeling like you can just like let down all of the armor and be truly yourself in a queer space.
Yes.
And in the same way, any queer media space, like a radio, has the same effect, right?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. This is our time, our voices.
Mm-hmm.
And not just talking to ourselves,
Right.
but talking to ourselves in a way that lets other people hear us. Other people can be a fly on our wall.
Right.
We can be welcoming and affirming to somebody else for a change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about in 79 and 87, you and This Way Out associate producers, you covered the March on Washington for gay and lesbian rights. Tell us what you remember about those events, the first marches.
Goodness. The first march was amazing. It was amazing because you have to understand a lot of the LGBT establishment at that time weren't really in favor of a march.
Right.
So it was really something that came from the grassroots.
Right.
It was an idea that sprang and people said yes. Very similar to the way marriage equality.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to touch it. It was going to be too hard.
Right.
But the people said yes, we need this. And the people came out from everywhere.
Right.
From everywhere. I mean, I remember the meetings leading up to it, the little breakthroughs in logistics and how we were going to put all this together, and how do you bring 100,000 people to Washington, D.C. from all over the world, and, you know, learning how to do it as we went along, raising nickels and dimes and pennies and quarters to make the thing happen. Each city,
Right.
with groups of people, grassroots people, People who had not been involved in stuff before, a lot.
And they saw this kind of possibility of like taking the issues to the center of government
Yes.
and being visible together. So in covering this, how did you do that? Did you take field recorders? Did you have a preparation around who you were going to interview? How did you do that?
Well, Bill Bogan
Yeah.
was the hero of the day. Bill Bogan was doing the Gay and Lesbian show at WPFW, the Pacifica station in Washington.
Oh, okay.
His day job was
Uh-huh.
working for NPR.
Aha.
So he talked them into footing the bill, basically.
Uh-huh.
As long as they gave us Moira Rankin, who at that time was an up-and-coming
Yeah.
NPR young star,
Yeah.
to kind of make sure that we didn't do anything horrible.
Okay.
I'm not sure any NPR stations actually played it. The Pacifica stations
Uh-huh.
played it.
Uh-huh.
We had people from San Francisco, from LA, from New York, from Boston, I think. And they were, Bruce Pennington, another hero of the day, was somebody who worked on the show at WPFW, had a big house, sleeping bags on his living room floor
Yeah.
with probably a dozen people.
Mm-hmm.
We had round tables figuring out who was going to do what and where and how. Everybody had their little field packs. At this time, they were, maybe this size
Yeah.
and a microphone. And people were running around the crowd. We figured out ways to have anchors at the table,
Mm-hmm.
people in the crowd, keeping in track of everything that was happening. One of the hysterical things, the speakers list was totally out of order.
Oh, God.
So poor Moira Rankin is saying, and that was so and so, and I'm no, actually, Moira.
I know
was
that.
really.
Oh, wow.
From that
Mhm.
crowd of people,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that crowd, and then when we did the next march in '87,
87, right.
and we drew all these people together, we said we could make a show
Mm-hmm.
with all these reporters
Ah,
feeding their material.
okay.
It was the early days of the NPR satellite.
Mm-hmm.
People were just starting to do this instead of, putting cassettes in the mail to each other. We were just starting to learn how to fly on the bird.
Uh-huh.
And we said we could do this. We could put together a weekly magazine of material from all these different kinds of reporters from everywhere that we now know. That we, for heaven's sakes, we've all slept together on the floor.
Right.
You
Literally.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is the founding story of This Way Out,
Yes.
which is like every time I picture this door opening, this like opening of possibility when I hear the name, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. Exactly right.
Wow. Wow. So, okay, after 33 years, is it 33 years?
Yeah.
Of working on This Way Out.
My hair has gotten this long in that length of time.
Wow. What has been the most meaningful impact do you think it's had on people?
I think a real, a solid understanding that we are everywhere,
Yeah.
that the movement is happening everywhere,
Right.
that people are in struggle and confronting oppression in all sorts of different contexts around the world.
Yeah.
And to have it all put together in one package. To see, this is the queer globe.
Right.
It's a really different consciousness than looking at the movement from the point of view of how much we have progressed here.
Mm-hmm. And there's like so much of that, just sort of seeing that, the U.S., as like the center of everything, and certainly folks in urban areas are like the
Yes.
example of, the It Gets Better project, of like you go to the big city and your life is better and then everything is fine and, you fixed everything.
Right.
But certainly, I mean, I'm in touch with folks in Southern Africa, because I grew up in South Africa.
Yes.
I'm in touch with folks with the European Lesbian Conference who deal with all of the lesbians in Central Asia. Places where you suddenly realize, wait a second, women are being attacked by right-wing thugs in the Ukraine. So we've been talking about, how This Way Out connects LGBTQ folks globally and the different perspectives that it brings. But tell us about the impact on you personally, all these years of working with this amazing show.
There's been a lot of work, but we have to also, I think it's helped me to keep the vision forward of queer media. Yeah. To look at it from a personal point of view, that's challenging to me as a radio artist.
Right.
How do we, what do we do with audio? And how do we live in this new media world?
Exactly.
And that then in turn feeds into what is the show supposed to be? If I examine who I am as an artist, that feeds into what the show is supposed to be and how we can better serve and grow.
And younger generations listening to podcasts, rediscovering the joy of audio, or maybe they never gave up, I don't know, but it's truly like it's everywhere. So where are you going now with This Way Out?
Well, it depends a lot on how up front. It depends a lot on our resources.
Right.
We've got the energy. We've got 33 years later, we're still not too old.
Yeah.
And we have a whole new generation to bring up.
Right.
If we have the resources to do it.
Yeah.
We have been, someone called us a 30-year startup. And in some ways, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we're still new and we're still fresh. We're still a sprout.
Yeah. I get that. Yeah.
But in other ways, we haven't taken full advantage of the kinds of opportunities that we can have and that we can give to the community.
So This Way Out is asking for folks' support right now.
Yes,
I mean, it's been part of, over the past, year plus of the pandemic, all these queer spaces have been part of a campaign, Save Our Queer Spaces. This is like saving a queer radio space.
Yes.
It's part of that same, hashtag, Save Our Queer Spaces. It's completely part of that, and it's like this magical place that's, a magical audio space for everyone, right?
Save our queer spaces and grow our queer spaces. Expand our queer spaces.
I love that.
Deepen our queer spaces.
Oh, these are all hashtags. Sorry, I'm too memed now.
No.
Yeah.
We've gotta learn to meme.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lucia, tell folks, where do they go to give to support This Way Out?
Just come to our website, thiswayout.org. Thiswayout.org.
Well, it's been really good talking to you about This Way Out.
Yes.
And about this amazing fundraising campaign. And now we're going back to the James Baldwin special, is that right?
Yes. Thank you so much for your support, Lynn.
Always.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.